News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. Chris Crock Show. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. When I was filing out of my sponsor in my church, Home Services, Dr. Jeffress doing a fantastic Palm Sunday service in the afternoon before we walked over to Clyde Warren Park for our great Carry the Cross event, which was great. We were spared from any rain. It was gorgeous. It was beautiful. It was surreal. You can see a picture of it on my website, on my social media feeds at Chris Crock Show. That's at Chris Crock Show. But I had a listener look at me as we were in line and says, "You look like Chris Crock." And I said, "Yeah, we're filing out." And I said, "I am." And then he says, on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3, make it a preset. He said the whole line. I was like, "Yeah, very well done, sir. I'm going to pay you a check, give you a check." So, of course, we saw horror the other day. We saw 137 people brutally slaughtered at the hands of ISIS-K, according to every report out there. Except for one, which was saying something else from a columnist today in the Wall Street Journal, which I will hit on that in a minute. But here's the thing. You've probably seen the horrific brutality of what ISIS-K is accused of doing and admits to doing, actually, in Crocus at their city hall in Moscow. And it's absolutely horrifying. And it makes many of us think, as it should, that this is going to happen to us next. And we think about the 140,000, at least the ones we know about, 140,000 at least, who have got away, have never been detected, didn't want to be detected, snuck through. So much for Joe Biden and the Democrats saying we need technology. Yeah, the technology detected them, but didn't stop them. So they got through because we're too busy wiping buttocks of babies, our Border Patrol, and processing illegals who have no business being in our country because they're not lawfully in our country for any such thing as asylum, etc. But many of us are thinking about, and I hope you have been thinking about this. And if you haven't seen the brutality of this ISIS-K attack, you can see it on my Twitter feed at Chris Crock Show. It's at Chris Crock Show, CHRISKR, okay? But we're all thinking about how that can happen here. And how Joe Biden has allowed in over 1 to 2 million gotaways since he took office. And so obviously the terrorists that are going to do the next hit like this, or much worse, I fear, are already in our country because Joe's let them in because of his policies. And so we need to realize that. And we need to watch this ISIS-K attack in Russia and learn from it, because I think Joe's invited in thousands and thousands of people that are going to do this to us if they can. And you can see them gun down and bomb 137 people with no fight from any authorities. And this is in Russia, where they can see and control everything. One of the things that has happened, we've seen in one of the things, the first thing I thought about when I saw this was, I can't believe they did this in Russia. Do you know what the Russian authorities are going to do to them? I cannot believe that these ISIS-K terrorists, they've got to be really freaking stupid. Because even no matter how much I was a terrorist, I would never do it in Russia. You know why? Because they can do anything they want to you in custody. Anything. And then what have we seen over the weekend? What did you catch what's on my social media feed, on my Twitter feed, at Chris Crock Show, CHRISKR, okay? They're taking them in one by one, catching them. One climbed up a tree. They beat the living crap out of these terrorists. One of them's eye socket. His eye came out of his eye socket. His freaking eye. You can see it on the social media feed, on my feed, if you want to. You can see his eye came out of his socket. That didn't just happen. These guys all appearing in court today, not all of the ones, but 3 of them at least, 3 to 4 of them. One of them's dazed, isn't even looking up. He's like, "Ugh." Another one of them is so brutalized, he's like, "Ah." You know what I'm saying? His face is melting and falling apart. He's got heavy, deep bruises all over his face. One of them has a blown up, like he swallowed a golf ball, or put a golf ball in his mouth. You know, 3 of them. And I'm not going to lie to you. First thing I thought of when I saw this was going down was they're going to wish they didn't do this in Russia. You don't want to know what's going to happen to you because they're going to get you. They don't have these civil rights things that we have. Number two, they're going to do something to you they would never do. We would never do to them. You know what I'm saying? In custody. And number three, you're going to wish you're dead. And then the last thing is I watched all this. I had no problem. Do you have any problem with seeing the terrorists treated like this? I have no problem. In fact, I'm like, I wish we could do some of this stuff here. And I'm not going to pretend I did it with any thought. It's just my reaction. And to this very moment, I look at this, and I'm like, my gosh, that's a good thing for terrorists to see. This is what's going to happen to you. So I want to ask you a few questions right now at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Does it bother you these accused ISIS-K terrorists appear to have been severely beaten? Does that bother you? Do you wish we were more like Russia in these kinds of matters? And do you believe that Putin somehow, there's another thing being alleged in the one columnist in the Wall Street Journal. It's not a regular guy. It's not an employee of theirs, but a guy named Gary Kasparov alleges in the Journal today that Russia did this so they could get, Putin did this for a drama. He ordered this or allowed this to happen because he wanted drama to override his horrible prosecution of this war with the Ukraine. Do you believe that Putin somehow either purposely caused this attack or allowed it to happen so that he could benefit from it, as is being alleged by one person at least? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-9227. Does it bother you these accused ISIS-K terrorists appear to have been severely beaten? Do you believe that Putin somehow either purposely caused this attack or allowed it to happen so that he could benefit from it? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. As of right now, they got one terrorist whose name, I'm not going to try to pronounce their names, it's so long. They're from Uzbekistan, by the way. And Uzbekistan touches Afghanistan. I'm sorry, they're not from Uzbekistan, they're from Tajikistan. But you need to understand something. These are the people coming here into our country. Uzbekistan, Tajikistan. All the Stan countries surrounding Afghanistan, touching Afghanistan or Afghanistan itself. So does it bother you that these accused ISIS terrorists appear to have been severely beaten? And do you wish we were more like Russia in these kinds of matters? I know it's hard to say that, and I know it's going to be hard to get people to admit that, but, do you have any sympathy for these terrorists watching this? I don't. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. The guy's eye almost coming out of his socket was quite profound to look at. It was quite profound. So, you got a 32-year-old, you got a 30-year-old, you got a 25-year-old, and you got a 19-year-old, all in custody, member of ISIS-K reportedly. And they're now being, by the way, you should hear the Russian authorities talk about this openly. You've got Medvedev openly saying stuff that is pretty amazing. He says, this is Dmitry, here's another one, a Russian lawyer named Dmitry Zakov. A new normal is being created. Now torture is acceptable against any suspect. If earlier torture was carried out secretly, earlier it was secret, now it's in public on camera. The message coming from the media is you can torture with electric shock, because some of these guys had electric shock. Did you see the pictures? It's on my Twitter feed. There's a car battery kind of a thing on the ground with wires going next to him, and his pants are down. Ruh-roh, Rastro. That's not, that doesn't look good for the radical Islamist community, does it? They might not want to take you back after that. I got more details to share with you on this, but the questions are, does it bother you these accused ISIS-K terrorists appear to have been severely beaten and tortured? Do you believe that, and do you wish that we were more like Russia in these kinds of matters? Kind of harkens back to the people we had in custody at Gitmo, waterboarding them and such, and the controversy over that. And do you believe that Putin somehow either purposely caused this attack or allowed it to happen so we could benefit from it? I don't believe that, but you never know. 800-288-WBAP. We'll get to your call on that next. I'll give you more details on the gory attack, but also on the brutality against these terrorists. That's coming up next. Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. All right, get ready for this, by the way. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make that a preset. It is the Chris Crock Show. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. The four people in custody, they have a total of 11. They have 7 others in custody that they believe are somehow connected to the attack that killed 137 people, the ISIS-K terror attack, ISIS-K claiming responsibility. Look at this, though. The allegations of suspected torture, and it's not even allegations. The media in Russia, which is obviously state-owned, if you will, whether it says it is or not, state-controlled. Russian media had reported, from the Associated Press, that the men were tortured during interrogation by the security services. One guy... I forgot to tell you this. One guy has a heavily bandaged ear. Media said he had cut his ear off during interrogation. The report I read said something about cutting it off and making him eat it. Wow. Woo! I'm not endorsing all this stuff, but I'm asking you. I'm saying I wish we were more... brutal when it comes to taking into custody and dealing with suspects in custody that are terrorists. And I look at this Russia thing. The first thing I thought was, when I saw this, first thing I thought was, these people, I can't believe they did this in Russia. They're so dead. I don't understand anybody who would do this in Russia. I mean, it takes a real pair to do something like this in Russia, because they can beat you with rubber hoses, shove the hoses up your you-know-what. They can, they can do anything. And sure enough, there's one of the suspects. If I look at it on my Twitter feed, I can share with you. As I look at this, going backwards in time here this weekend, our number, by the way, is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Does it bother you that these accused ISIS-K terrorists appear to have been severely beaten and tortured? Do you believe, and also, do you wish we were more like Russia in these kinds of matters, with roughing up the suspects of a serious terrorist attack? Or do you want to stick with, hey, look, we're the United States of America. We don't want to be tortured. We don't want this kind of stuff to happen to our citizens. So, no, we're better than this. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Also, there's allegations by a man named Gary Kasparov. Today in the Wall Street Journal, Kasparov is alleging that Putin allowed this to happen so it could help him with his narrative of his horrible war he launched against Ukraine that he still hasn't won, although he's going to win it. We all know it. But he is a co-founder of the World Liberty Congress, chairman of the Renewed Democracy Initiative. Anyways, he says that Putin knew this was going to happen and allowed it. But I'm not so sure, but it could be. What do I know? But my big thing is, do you wish we were a little bit more like this? A little brutal, or maybe a lot brutal, I don't know, with our terrorists, to get information out of them, to prevent them from doing this, to make other terrorists think twice about doing this because of what can happen to them. 800-288-WBAP is our number. All right, I'm looking at this guy's in a gymnasium on the floor, like of a basketball court of some kind in Russia, and I see him buck naked. I see a wire coming out of something that appears to be like a car battery, and the wire goes from the car battery to the man's genital area, and he's sideways with his pants down to his knees. I don't know what that is, but I don't want to be that guy. Right? Okay, another picture of this guy today just staring like a zombie into space, looking a little bit down, a little bit up, with some kind of a, I don't know what that is, a shirt or something torn around his neck or a bandage. One person tweeted out that I retweeted that got this video. He says, look at this broken, tortured shadow of a human. I understand why ISIS prefers to die fighting. This is a good recruiting ad, he says, for terrorists. Is it? Maybe it is. Maybe we shouldn't do this. Somebody who called off the show was mentioning, off the air, told producer Garrett that we have something called extraordinary rendition, right, with the CIA, right? Yeah, anyways, that's all right. Extraordinary rendition where we've taken people to countries where we can do more fun stuff with them, like this. Perhaps not this brutal, but like this. Here's another guy, if you look at my social media feed, one of the terrorists. One of them, by the way, never opened his eyes. He's got blood all over his face from being beat to hell, I'm sure. His left cheek looks like it's got a golf ball in it from last night or this weekend. And another guy has his eye out of a socket, clearly out of a socket. It is horrible to look at. And blood between his lips as he's just lying on the ground motionless. Ruh-roh, Rastro. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Quote from the Associated Press, Russian media reported the men were tortured during interrogation by security services, heavily bandaged ear on one of the four. Russian media said Saturday one of the suspects had his ear cut off during the interrogation. I'm sure that was an accident. Fourth suspect brought into court from a hospital in a wheelchair, sat with his eyes closed to the proceedings. He was attended by medics while in court. He wore a hospital gown and trousers and was seen with multiple cuts. 7 more detained on suspicion of involvement in the attack, and I would not want to be any of those people. Here's another thing. This attack. Do you know these people that are in there that they have been arrested for the terrorist attack, and Russia says they did it? Do you know that they are migrants? They're migrants. Yes, just like ours. They're migrants, which is code for illegal. And these migrants are from, as I had mentioned already, they're from Tajikistan. How many migrants do we have in our country now? About 12 million? And about 1.5 to 2 million since day one that are gotaways? They just want to work. I mean, they don't qualify for asylum. They just want to work. Yes, they want to work at getting guns and shooting up a concert venue with 137 U.S. citizens in it, like what happened in Russia. They're migrants. So these are just wonderful, sweet migrants that are just looking for opportunity, guys. 800-288-WBAP is our number. On the Chris Crock Show, coming up next, U.S. Border Patrol Chief, over the weekend, calls out and he calls out the southern border. He says it is a national security threat. This is the guy who works for Joe Biden and DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. You understand? So he literally is ratting on his bosses to us because he's so alarmed of what has been allowed to happen for 3.5 years now. So the Border Patrol chief calls the southern border a national security threat, citing 140,000 got-away migrants. Maybe they're from Tajikistan like these fellas were. That's next on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
Are you concerned about that, about the potential dangerous people or potential terrorists who may be infiltrating the country because you are so focused on processing asylum seekers, families, and others who are in distress?
Absolutely. That's you ask any law enforcement officer, especially somebody that works in border security, that is what keeps us up at night. We're at closing in on 1 million entries this fiscal year alone. That number is a large number, but what's keeping me up at night is the 140,000 known gotaways.
That is not part of that tally.
That is not part of that tally, and that's just what we know.
Is that a national security risk?
That is a national security threat. Border security is a big piece of national security, and if we don't know who is coming into our country and we don't know what their intent is, that is a threat, and they're exploiting a vulnerability that's on our border right now.
All right, that is our border chief, Jason Owens. So do you understand how risky it is for him to come out and say that? When his boss says the border's secure and Kamala says the border's secure? You're not going to believe. I'm going to play some audio for her of her today, dancing around and clapping to people that she thinks are lauding her, that are mocking her. I'm not kidding you. You'll hear that, and I'll explain coming up next at the 8:45 mark on the Chris Crock Show. But first, talking about the threat, now that we see ISIS-K successfully, quote-unquote, finish the job of murdering 137 Russians, just mowing them down, killing them indiscriminately, innocent civilians, unarmed, of course, with what seems to me, as I was listening, to be fully automatic machine gun type weapons. If not, they're semi-automatic, but nonetheless, they're powerful and they're slaughtering people at will. Those four who are in custody in Russia right now are from Tajikistan, but they worked as migrant laborers in Russia. Migrants. These are just migrants. We need to house them in our homes and bring them in. What do you think? How many migrants are here that are going to slaughter us? You just heard the Border Patrol chief. You think Joe Biden wants him to say that? You think Alejandro Mayorkas wants him to say that? He did. And he's the third Border Patrol chief in the Biden administration so far. The first two left so they could tell the truth about what's going on. That is a disaster of their making, of Biden's making. So here's the message from the Wall Street Journal. I want to hear from you right now, by the way. Our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227 on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make that a preset. After seeing the terror attack in Russia, in a state that is controlled by Russian state media, by the government, and CCTV cameras, and such. After seeing that terror attack in Russia over the weekend, Friday into the weekend, how likely do you think one of these types of attacks are going to happen here in America, especially with Joe Biden's wide open borders? And by the way, these are Tajik migrants. How many Tajikistan illegal migrants are here in our country? We know that tens of thousands, from reports I've shared with you on the radio over the past couple of years, I think it was the last time I did this was about 6 months ago, 4 months ago, maybe even 2 months ago, Uzbeki nationals, tens of thousands of them coming over. Not 1,000 of them, but like 10, 20, 30,000 type numbers so far. That's a pro-terrorist nation as well. We found terrorists on the watch list from Uzbekistan, and some of them we never got to hunt down. Remember that? When they put out the memo and everything, the FBI did, and released it to the press. They didn't want to, but it was desperation. After seeing this terror attack in Russia, how likely do you think one of these types of terrorist attacks are going to happen here in America, especially with Joe Biden's wide open borders? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Let's go to Ken in Arlington. You're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Ken.
Hey, Chris. Hey, what Russia did to those terrorists, Russia, Ukraine, and China does to its own citizens. It's just that since somebody from a foreign country came in and did it to Russia, they're going to expose it.
Yes, I agree.
And that's the sad case of reality, is that the citizens of those countries plus other countries I'm sure that I didn't list, their government does it every day to their citizens. It just doesn't get exposed. But let a foreign invader come in and do that to their own citizens, they're going to stand up and say, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. So
what do you think then? Do you think something like this is likely to happen here in America now that we've had, I mean, you just heard the Border Patrol chief, 140,000 known gotaways. There's a bunch that are unknown, I'm sure of it. I'm sure you agree with that. 140,000, but that's just since October, when the fiscal year began. So what are we looking at here? 4.5 months, 160,000. I mean, how many of those are terrorists?
But Chris, the United States did have a pair up until the late 70s, early 80s, until a bunch of whiny crybabies got into Congress and Senate and said, we can't do that. We did. We protected our borders. Maybe we didn't go as far as what, is exposed that Russia did, but we defended our borders. I would like to know the numbers of, okay, look, what happened in the 70s and 80s, because I guarantee you we stood up and protected our borders.
Well, we even did it under Trump, too. So what do you think? How likely do you think it is that one of these types of attacks that just happened in Russia, killing 133 people, how likely do you think attacks like that are to happen here in America now with Joe Biden's wide open borders?
Oh, it's happening right now, one at a time. Georgia, New York, go down the list of what has just been in the news of these people from Venezuela coming in doing one at a time. All it's going to take is multiple, and they're going to do multiple.
But what do you think, how likely is it that this kind of a spectacular terror attack that kills 130 or a couple more, 100 more or worse in our country?
Oh, I think the numbers will increase of the numbers that these Venezuelans or other foreigners are going to do to Americans. As long as Biden's in office, he won't touch them.
I know, but so I'm trying to get out of you. You think a major attack like this is going to happen here because of what Joe Biden's let in?
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a 9/12, a 9/13, a 9/14, and so on. And that's what's going to happen.
I appreciate your call, Ken. Thank you very much. We have three lines open, 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Marty says we need, he just said this on my, you can see me live on Facebook Live at, just go to on Facebook, go to @Chris Crock Show. That's @Chris Crock Show, CHRISKROK. Marty says we need Gladiator Days back. Pay to watch. Oh boy. Joe and Grapevine, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Joe.
Hey, Chris. Great start, as always.
Thank you.
Chris, what this president has done to all of us, Democrat, Republican, wherever you stand politically, or even if you don't, he has put us in a very serious situation just to gain political power on a quicker route. Chris, I heard a Border Patrol agent a couple of nights ago being interviewed up north. In 2023, there was 464 that were caught up north trying to come into the United States from the north. That also went up to 500 and something when you added, what was it, the 130 in 2023 that were caught on the terrorist watch list alone. So, Chris, almost 600 of the north and southern border that we know of, not the ones we don't of, were caught on and were on the terrorist watch list. This is absolutely outrageous what this man has done and this party has done. And if you people stand with this, you think that they're going to give you some kind of warning because, you let them all come in? I don't think so, Chris. God bless you and what you're doing.
God bless you. Thank you. And great call today. We've got four lines open now at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. That's 800-288-9227. Next, Dave in Flower Mound, do not go anywhere. You're coming up right out of the box because Dave has something to share with you that, as I see what he's going to say, is I can't wait to hear what he has to say about it. Talking about something bad going down, in his opinion. That's coming up next, plus your call, 800-288-WBAP. After seeing the terror attack in Russia, how likely do you think one of these types of attacks are to happen here in America, especially with Joe Biden's wide-open borders? God help us, and I agree with our last caller, and I'm going to give you an example from the Wall Street Journal editorial board today, literally saying, quote, a revised ISIS rampages Moscow. They hit another place that I would never hit either. They hit Iran, if you don't recall. I'll refresh your memory on that. Also, how strong ISIS-K is now because of Joe Biden and what he did in Afghanistan. You're not going to want to hear this, but you need to hear it next on the Chris Crock Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. Chris Crock on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make that a preset. A revised ISIS rampages Moscow, says the Wall Street Journal. Suicide bomber killed more than 80 in Iran from ISIS-K in January. Remember that? ISIS-K is so bad they bomb up Iranian funerals for Qasem Soleimani, not this funeral, but the annual memorial. And it's so bad they go to Russia and shoot up 137 people. And how many Uzbekistans? These guys are from actually Tajikistan. How many Uzbekis or Tajiks are here in America that are illegals? These guys were also migrants in Russia. So my question is, after seeing the terror attack in Russia, how likely do you think one of these types of attacks are to happen, especially with Joe Biden's wide-open borders? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Dave in Flower Mound, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Dave.
Hey, Chris. Hey, I try and pretend every morning that this just really isn't happening to our country because it scares the daylights out of me. That with the border being as open as it is, I don't think if this will ever happen. I hate to say it, but I think it's when is it going to happen, because there's no way that we don't have people coming into this country that hate this country and want to do us harm, that those aren't the kind of people that are coming into the country as well. And I can't believe our administration is allowing this to happen. What is it in their end game that they're going to gain besides maybe some votes from destroying our country like this? I don't get it.
I think they'd rather see another 10 or another 3,000 of us killed like on 9/11 or worse, and get these illegals in this country. To me, they've actually. I'm going to say this. Let me say this, and I want to hear your reaction to this, Dave. To me, they've made this is a decision. By the way, we're entering the fourth year of Joe Biden doing this. According to CBS News, that number is a large number. The Border Patrol chief said in the interview I played a little earlier, Jason Owens. What's keeping me up at night is 140,000 known gotaways. And CBS says 1 million illegals have happened so far, been apprehended in this fiscal year so far, which means 5.5 months, 1 million, which means we're on track for about 2.5 million, according to CBS News and according to these estimates. Actually, these numbers, they're not estimates. They have 140,000 gotaways that are known. There's a lot more we don't know about. You and I know that. But 140,000 known gotaways that we couldn't stop because we were too busy wiping butts and processing illegals, wiping babies' butts and giving them diapers changes, etc. But so with these numbers in just 5.5 months, obviously they've made a decision. Let another 3,000 in 9/11 or maybe 10,000 this time die in a spectacular attack, because the power we'll get with these new voters, these new voting districts, with new censuses, with more numbers in Senate and House in the Congress are worth it. Does that make sense to you? They've made a decision.
It's got to be, that has to be the only thing, the only reason why they could be doing it, because nothing else makes sense. The only other thing they could be doing is they want to cause so much chaos in our country that somebody comes up and goes, hey, you vote for me and I will solve all of this, and next thing you know, we're in a dictatorship. Trust me, this is not Donald Trump that's doing that. It's on the left that wants to see that happen, because they always say what they're doing themselves, what the Democrats are doing themselves. They always accuse the Republicans of doing.
Yes, that's exactly correct.
But that's the Democrats are the ones we need to fear, and I don't know how we get that through more people's heads, that the Democrats aren't here to save us.
Okay, so which would you lay down on the table as a bet is the most likely one? The Democrats have decided, and Joe Biden leading them, have decided to accept a major terrorist attack in exchange for more power through all these illegals coming in, or the other one, which you just said, which is allow illegals to flood for chaos so we can get more power out of this with new executive orders or new tactics.
I'll be honest with you, Chris. I almost think it's the latter of the two. I think it's to cause some chaos, so much chaos. Everybody's looking for somebody who can solve this problem and save us all. I really believe that's more of what's going on.
Dave, I really appreciate your call, and I was looking forward to it, and it definitely was worth it. 800 to call again, brother. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. David, I'm big with David or Daves today as well. That's one of my siblings' name, by the way. It's a great name. My mom used to yell, David, Chris, time for dinner. Come home. Hey, David, it's time for you to go on the air with me at Colleyville. You're live on News Talk 820 WVAP, now on FM 93.3. What's up?
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Hey, so absolutely, this is disgusting what's happening with this country, with this president. He's subverting our Constitution, and if there has ever been anybody a president that should be brought up on subversion and treason to this country, it is this man, for allowing what he's doing, for what he's allowing to happen at our southern border. What we think, what's going to happen with all these people who are here that we don't know about, my gosh, they're just sleeper cells waiting for the order. Could you imagine what happened in Israel on October 7th, happening in multiple locations at the same time?
It's going to.
And then maybe even coupled with the Chinese or the Iranians who are working on our power grids, who are constantly trying to, get into our power grids and our communications. And we still don't know what happened with that AT&T thing. Maybe that was just a test thing.
I was talking to my friend and sponsor, Randy Martin from IRSProb.com. We were hanging out, and he mentioned that again, and I said exactly right. Yes. He doesn't. He agrees with you, and I agree with you too. That was it was a Chinese Communist Party doing that to us. It wasn't solar flares or some other BS. So I agree, and yeah.
This party, this president, this administration shows that it's willing to lie to us to hide the truth, whatever it is they're doing, and who knows why.
What?
We can only guess, right? But
right.
it's disgusting. Gotcha.
Wait, real fast. I gotta ask you yes or no on there. Which one? Which do you vote for? That they've decided, the Democrats have decided to just accept a major terror attack in exchange to get millions into blue cities to get more votes in Congress, or is it that they have flooded in to make chaos so they can push through more things to give them more tremendous power?
You know what? I think it's all of it. I don't think it's cut and dry. I think it's always about power for the Democrats to create the problem, to create the emergency, so that we give them the
power. Yeah, this is their plan, is what you're saying, and I agree, David. Thank you. All right, Robert in Fort Worth, you're next. We've got another person on hold, but we have 3 lines open for you at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. After seeing the terror attack in Russia, how likely do you think one of these types of attacks are to happen in America, right here, especially with Joe Biden's wide open borders? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. I've got more information coming in, and you want to laugh real hard? Kamala was made fun of and mocked, and she clapped along because she had no idea what was happening. This just came in today. That's next as well, and it has to do with the illegals. All that next in the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.